Another important thing that happens and has a very deep meaning to it is this fear that Jason Lannister gives to the king. And I will tell you about its deep meaning when we get to it. It has a reference to one of the events of Game of Thrones. And man, when I found out about it, I was like, alright, hey there, welcome back to your channel. Today we have another House of the Dragon review, this time episode 3. Man, what an episode. I think it was the best between the first 4 of them. And why 4 of them? Because at the time that I'm recording this video, episode 4 is out and I also watched it. I couldn't record this video last week because I was so sick, I was dying, but here I am, I survived it. So episode 3, it started really epic and it ended really epic and I really liked it. I think it's 8 out of 10 if it's not 9 out of 10. And yeah, I think we had everything in it. We had character development, action, I don't know, drama. And honestly, I never thought that the crab feeder is gonna die in this episode because I thought that he's gonna be around for like a few episodes. But again, there is a huge gap between the second episode and the third episode. I think there's 3 years between them, so it makes sense that Daemon was dealing with the crab feeder for 3 years and now he was able to kill him because he was tight on a deadline, which we'll get to it. The episode is full of meaningful scenes which if you haven't watched Game of Thrones or if you don't pay attention to them, you will easily miss them. There are very small details and there are also a few mistakes. Yeah, a few CG mistakes, a few editing mistakes, which we will get to them. So make sure to watch the video till the end and let's get to the episode. But this time, instead of showing you the actual footage of the episode, I'm gonna put just the screenshot on this part of the screen, like here, because I'm tired of getting copyright claims by YouTube and HBO. As I said, the starting sequence of the show was pretty strong. Although we had action in it, we also had character development. That's right. There's a scene where someone's asking Daemon for help, but Daemon, instead of helping him, just sits on him with his dragon and just crushes his body, kills him alive to tell us that Daemon's not here to rescue anybody. He's here just to kill and he's seeking his own glory and nothing else. Yeah, this is the scene where he just crushes the man. When I first saw it, you can see my reaction. When I first saw it, I was like, wait, what? And then at the end of the episode, he does it again. At the end of the episode, there's someone who delivers the king's letter to him and he just beats the crap out of him. These are character development for Daemon to show he might be caring for someone like Tromaya, but he doesn't care about his own men. And there are times that all he wants is just glory for himself and nothing else. Another small detail I caught in the opening sequence was when Daemon receives an arrow, I think in the shoulder, the dragon also feels the pain. I don't remember if we had that in Game of Thrones because in Game of Thrones, Daenerys never got hurt. Yeah, you see, the dragon is not getting any arrow, but when Daemon gets shot, the dragon also screams, which is a very small detail. And I also mentioned it in the previous episode where Otto Hightower threatens Daemon and Craxus shows up, like what happened to Daenerys in the fighting pits of Meereen in Game of Thrones, I think season 5. Then we cut to a feast, and again the scene wants to tell us 2 years has passed. 3 years has passed since the previous episode, and now the king has a son, and Alicent is also pregnant for another baby. And another important aspect of the scene is the king not caring about the news of stepstones. We also get to see some new characters like the Lannister brothers and the brother of Otto Hightower, which is the king of Old Town. And they're all here for Prince Aegon's second name day. There's going to be a hunt. So many houses from different parts of the realm are here to celebrate it. And I really like the setup for the hunt because in Game of Thrones Season 1, they couldn't have this amount of ceremonies due to low budget. But thank God in this TV show they're having the budget finally, not as much as Lord of the Rings, but they're making good use of it, so I really appreciate it. The next detail in this scene is the king not wanting to hear anything about the stepstones, so the Lannister guy is just insisting on the news that these are important news. Your brother Daemon and House Velaryon are in danger, you have to go and help them. But the king is not caring so much about that. He just wants to pay attention to the ceremony and celebrate his son's second name day, not because he doesn't care about the stepstones, because I think it's because of what Daemon did to him. He disobeyed him, so he doesn't care about what's gonna happen to Daemon. Another reason for that is in the previous episode, the king said, for the stability of the realm, we have to stay away from every war we can. So going to help his brother and have a war with the free cities of the narrow sea doesn't seem like a good idea to him. And he just wants to stay here and don't care about that. And then we have a very smooth transition from this scene to Rhaenyra.
Can someone tell me where in the seven hells Rhaenyra might be?
Under the dragon's eye.
How beautiful it was done. The scene again is full of details. It just, here we can see Rhaenyra not caring about the ceremony because, of course, it's his brother's second name day, which is gonna be kind of her rival for the Iron Throne. And she also has problems with Alicent because after she married her father, their relationship is kind of screwed up, and Rhaenyra doesn't want to see Alicent anymore, although Alicent still sees her as her friend, but Rhaenyra doesn't see it that way, and she's kind of separated from her family. The important point of the scene is, this time, so in the first two episodes, it was Rhaenyra who was the princess, and Alicent was her maiden. But this time, Alicent is the queen, and Rhaenyra is just the princess. So they kind of switched place. It's the power dynamic between the two of them. Yeah, it's so well done. And I hope there's a longer version of this song, Under the Dragon's Eye, available somewhere, I don't know, on Spotify, YouTube Music, or anywhere else, because I really want to hear it over and over. Back then, there was no music player, so Rhaenyra couldn't just play it and put it on repeat. So she had to have the man behind it to sing it over and over. But today we can do it. Today we can open up Spotify, play Under the Dragon's Eye, and put it on repeat. I mean, life's easy these days. Yeah. Then we get to the carriage scene, which again, first of all, look at the setup of the scene. We see King's Landing in the background. We see Dragon's Pit, and then we go into the carriage, something we never saw before in this quality. In the first season of Game of Thrones, we saw a king and queen coming out of the carriage, but we never saw if there's something happening between them in the carriage, any of the dialogues. We actually saw many carriage scenes between Tyrion and Lord Varys in the late episodes of Game of Thrones, but they weren't full of meanings. I mean, they were just cock jokes between Tyrion and Lord Varys.
You should consider yourself lucky. At least your balls won't freeze off.
You take great offense at dwarf jokes, but love telling eunuch jokes. Why is that?
Because I have balls, and you don't.
Very poor written, but here, not only we have good dialogues, but also there's a very small detail in the carriage scene. Look at this. The king, Alicent, and their son is in one side of the carriage, and Rhaenyra is in the other side. And it wants to show us how separated they got from each other. And the king is trying to be a good man. He's trying to keep the family together. But, I mean, there are problems and we can't ignore them. Of course, Rhaenyra is still mad at the king and Alicent, and things aren't going really well between them. And then we have King's carriage entering the camp, and man, look at the camp. Look at it. I love it. I mean, look at the setup. It's amazing. This is how a hunt should look like. Not what we saw in the first season of Game of Thrones. And also, you can see King's Landing in the background. I mean, I really love all the small details that have been put in these scenes. I really appreciate it. And then we have some dialogues going on between the women, and they're talking about the matter of the stepstones to show us that it's already happening in the background. We might not see it right now, but it's already happening between the Velaryons, the crabfeather, Daemon, and I really like these scenes that we see when men are hunting, women are also gathering somewhere talking about different matters. We saw a very small scene like this in Game of Thrones where Lannister soldiers were fighting Stannis. I think it was season 2, episode 9. but it wasn't as detailed as this one. It was just a dialogue going on between Cersei and Sansa. But here we have it going on between all of the women, so many new characters that we might see them more in the next episodes. And another small detail is the way Rhaenyra talks to them. I mean, she's not really good in diplomacy and she doesn't know how she should talk to noble people. She's a little bit arrogant, which might be a problem for her in the future because these houses pledge loyalty to her as the future queen of the Seven Kingdoms. But right now, when they see what type of character she has, they might turn against her in the future, which is a very important matter. I really appreciate that they're showing these scenes. So in the future, if they just turn their back to her, we know what the reason was. As I said, there are a few mistakes I spotted in this sequence. If you pay close attention, you will realize that there are some Arabic words written on the chairs, which I think they had to be removed by the visual effects artists. Maybe they didn't see it. I'm pretty sure they're gonna be removed from the Blu-ray version of the TV show, but still, I mean, we saw them and it's kinda embarrassing. Yes, if you look at this scene, you'll realize that it says Ahlan wa Sahlan on the chair, which means welcome in Arabic. And again, so many setups, so many scenes full of small details that they might not have deep meanings inside them, but they also don't require so much screen time. So showing them is just gonna give us the atmosphere of medieval hunts. And man, I really like them. These small details, I mean, what a porch. And then we get to a scene between Jason Lannister and Rhaenyra, which wants to show how arrogant Lannisters are. They're just as hateful as they were in Game of Thrones. And I think it's in Lannister's blood to be hateful. A very rude marriage proposal. I think the only meaning to this scene is, again, character development. It just wants to show us Jason Lannister's manners. And then Rhaenyra finds out that it was her father who sent Jason Lannister for a marriage proposal, and she goes to her. There's an argument between them. It's kind of familiar because we had these sorts of fight because in medieval times, marriage between noble houses and big houses was a very important thing. Sometimes it stopped great wars, sometimes it caused great wars, like what we saw in Game of Thrones, the Red Wedding. And we saw these arguments also in Game of Thrones between Tywin Lannister, Tyrion, and Cersei. I'm not sure which season it was.
You'll marry Sir Loras.
I will not.
The boy is heir to High Garden. Tyrion will secure the north, you will secure the Reach.
No, I won't do it.
Yes, you will. You're still fertile, you need to marry again and breed.
I am Queen Regent, not some brood mare.
You're my daughter! You will do as I command, and you will marry Loras Tyrell.
Father, don't make me do it again, please.
Not another word. My children.
It just wants to show us how important marriages are and how Rhaenyra is against them. She doesn't want to be stuck in a castle and producing more heirs for someone. So she just wants to have the time of her life, and she's against marriage. And now that she found out that her father sent Jason Lannister for a marriage proposal, she's angry with her father. There's an argument going on, and yeah, it doesn't end well. At the end, Alicent takes a horse. She runs away from the camp. Sir Criston Cole goes after her, and the scene causes a few other character developments and a very small relationship between Criston Cole and Rhaenyra, which in the next episode we see where it leads them to. And then we see the king getting so much drunk, not because like Robert Baratheon, he wants to enjoy his time, because he's dealing with so many problems. The matter of stepstones is there, the matter of his daughter is there, there are so many other things in his head he's thinking about. And actually a few minutes further we're gonna see what he's dealing with. He also have a few wounds on his body from the Iron Throne, which is making him more sick, and it's actually affecting his health. In the scene that he wants to kill the stag, we see that he's really dealing with so many important issues that he can't even aim for the stag's heart. He's dealing with so many problems, and we can see it here. And as he's drunk, people from different houses come to have their marriage proposals for Rhaenyra, and all of them want to marry Rhaenyra to their sons, unless Lionel Strong. I'm not sure if it's Lionel Strong or Lionel Strong, but unless Strong, the Master of Laws. Another important thing that happens and has a very deep meaning to it is this fear that Jason Lannister gives to the king. And I will tell you about its deep meaning when we get to it. It has a reference to one of the events of Game of Thrones. And man, when I found out about it, I was like, what? And then we cut to Rhaenyra and Sir Criston Cole. It's actually a little bit of relationship development between the two of them. And then something important happens. Yeah, here. A boar attacks them, and it just makes Criston Cole flying in the air. It just throws him out of the way to show how strong it is. And we already know they are strong because one of them actually killed Robert Baratheon. And then it attacks Rhaenyra to show us, although she hasn't been in a fight situation, a battle situation, she knows how to defend herself. So yeah, and this is the scene, and she kills the boar, which is interesting because when the king wants to kill a stag, which is not even a wild animal, two men has to keep the stag so the king can kill it. But here, Rhaenyra kills a boar all on her own. And as I said, these boars are wild animals. One of them actually killed Robert Baratheon, who was a very great warrior. And here, seeing Rhaenyra killing one of them it actually wants to show us how strong she can be in dangerous situations. And here's one of the most important scenes of the episode. As I said, the king is dealing with so much pain, and not all of them are physical pains. Here we see why he was struggling all this time, why he got drunk so much. And man, Paddy Considine, he nailed it with his performance in this scene. He's worried about the future of his house. He's worried about the future of his daughter and his son. And he just says Alicent about it, that when he made Rhaenyra the heir to the Iron Throne, he never thought that this is gonna happen, that he's gonna have a son in the future. And now he's confused. He doesn't know what decision he has to make for the stability of the realm. Rhaenyra, of course, is a girl. Not every house wants to pledge loyalty to her. When Aegon also has a son, and you know what? He's actually right about that, because the decision he makes in the future is gonna cause a civil war between Targaryens, and it's gonna destroy half of them. So I think he's not worried for no reason. He's actually right about everything, and one small mistake is gonna cause the destruction of a great house like House Targaryen. So, and then he goes for the hunt the next day, and he sees the stag, and it's not a white stag as his men were telling him to. First of all, the stag, we know it's CG, and it's not a good CG. It's so animated, and I mean, it's kind of embarrassing for a show like this that has giant dragons with a great quality of CG. Having a stag like this, I mean, it's not satisfying. But anyway, so the king thinks it's a white stag, but when he goes there, it's not a white stag. So it might also affect his decision on choosing Aegon as the heir. And as we see later, the white stag actually shows up to Rhaenyra. So maybe it means that she is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, although she's a female. Alright, this is the scene I was talking about. As I said, it's not just a normal scene, it has a very deep meaning to it. It's actually a reference to one of the most important events of Game of Thrones. So here the king wants to kill a stag, and he could do it with any random weapon. He could do it with a crossbow, he could do it with any random, spear, but he does it with a Lannister spear. doesn't it remind you of something? It's kind of foreshadowing King Robert's death because Lancel Lannister, the Lannister sphere, kills a stag, Robert Baratheon, in a hunt. That's a very beautiful and deep foreshadowing. As I said, the king could kill the stag with any random weapon, any random sphere, but he did it with a Lannister sphere, and man. And when the king's done with the stag, we see Rhaenyra also out there in the jungle, and actually, this is interesting. The white stag shows up to Rhaenyra, but instead of commanding Sir Criston Cole to attack it, she asks him to stop and not attack the stag or damage it or kill it because she doesn't care about that. She already hunted her boar and she's gonna take it to the camp to show it to everyone for them to see what other things she's capable of. And in this scene also, we get to see two of the new characters that we might see more of them in the story because in the book they actually have an important role, of course. Both of them are Sir Lionel Strong's sons. I'm not sure what their names was, but seeing them in this scene is actually kind of introducing them to us so we can see more of them in the future. And then, of course, we go back to King's Landing and Sir Otto Hightower comes to Alicent, tells her to talk to the king, to name Aegon as his heir. And Alicent also shows excitement for that. She says, which mom doesn't want to see her son on the Iron Throne? So she likes it, but when she goes to the king, she finds out that the king is struggling and dealing with so many other issues. So she doesn't bring up the matter of the heir, which is a very, very small touch. I really like Alicent for the wise person she is, because she's not just like a parrot who repeats her father's words to the king. She actually knows when to say things, and she actually advises the king to send help for his brother, because the matter of stepstones is not just something that Lord Velaryon and Daemon are dealing with. If they lose in the battle, Westeros and King's Landing also have to deal with it. So, I mean, she's wise. She's a very wise person. What a great piece of character development. I really appreciate it. And then we get to the small council meeting again, the king talking to Rhaenyra. I really like these dialogues that happen between the two characters. I mean, it really develops the relationship, the father and daughter relationship between the two of them. And it really shows that this king is not like Tywin Lannister, because Tywin Lannister asked Cersei to marry Sir Loras Tyrell, and he didn't care about Cersei at all. But here the king is asking Rhaenyra to marry a noble person, but he also cares about Rhaenyra being happy. I mean, he's a very good father, he's a very good person, and he doesn't want Rhaenyra to marry at any price. He wants her to be happy. So another thing I spotted in this episode was a visual effects mistake. If you look at King's hand, you will realize that there are two green things around two of his fingers, which means they had to be cleaned out from the scene, but it slipped out from their hands, and it can be forgiven. I mean, when we see those huge dragon scenes, those huge CGs that were put into this TV show, we can kind of forgive them for this small thing they missed. And I mean, whatever it is, it's better than a Starbucks. I mean, seriously. And after the scene's done, we get to the most important part of the episode. First of all, let me say something to you. Some people, when I was talking to them, said this scene doesn't make any sense because Daemon and House Velaryon have dragons. So how couldn't they defeat the crab feeder with dragons? First of all, if you pay attention to the opening scene of the episode, you'll realize that crab feeder is living in a land full of caves. And those caves actually are a very good hideout against dragons, because first of all, the dragon can't enter those caves. Even if their troops enter those caves, they don't know what's gonna face in those caves. So it's a very great risk for them to send troops in those caves because the crab feeder might have some traps in there. Yeah, they're gonna be killed easily if they enter those caves. So it makes sense that after all these years, after all these 3 years, they couldn't defeat the crab feeder. And there's a very famous line from Lord Baelish in Game of Thrones for that. He says, when he and Sansa are entering Eyrie, I think, he says, know your lands and make good use of it. Which is something that the crab feeder is doing at the moment. He knows these lands, he knows that he has caves, and he is making good use of it. And by making good use of it, he's able to defeat Daemon and Velaryon army even when they have dragons. And then we get to this scene where Lord Corlys Velaryon and his brother and his sons are making war strategies, and Daemon arrives there. They know they're being defeated, and here something very important happens that changes all the strategies they have. Someone from King's Landing arrives here who brings a letter to Daemon from King Viserys, and this message is actually the game changer of the episode. So first, when Daemon read the message and he beat the crap out of the person who delivered the message, I was like, okay, maybe Viserys says he doesn't want to send any help. That's why Daemon's angry. But a little bit further, when we hear King's voice reading the message to Daemon, we actually find out why Daemon did that and why he's going to the crab feeder's island alone.
Know that it is not my desire to see you fail in your cause.
Know that this is not my desire to see you fail in your cause. That's the game changer. So Daemon knows that if King Viserys send aid and they win the war, King Viserys is gonna steal all the glory he was fighting for in all the previous 3 years. So he now knows that the clock is ticking and he has to attack the crab feeder on his own before King Viserys' aid arrives to them. Now he's on a very tight deadline, and that's why he puts his life in danger to go to the island alone and surrender himself to the crab feeder so he can do whatever he has in his head. So he goes there alone. He has a white flag of surrender, which actually doesn't mean he wants to surrender. It's his plan. And there are so many different levels of decision making and character development in this scene, which I'm going to tell them to you one by one. First of all, why did he surrender? Because he doesn't want to enter the cave, because he doesn't know what's going on in those caves. So he wants to surrender, and he wants to offer his sword, which is the Dark Sister, one of the famous Valyrian swords in the Seven Kingdoms. So the crab feeder is actually out of the cave. But we see when crab feeder is out of the cave, he is looking to the sky because he's looking for Craxes and he thinks that this might be an ambush. Another thing that some people might think it doesn't make sense in this scene is when he starts running, none of the arrows actually hit him, and I will explain why. So the archers are shooting him, but none of the arrows hit him, and there are a few reasons for that. First, the archers are so far away from him, and aiming a moving target in the distance is not an easy task. And the second reason is he takes cover whenever he can. Look at this. When they shoot him, he sits behind those wooden barrels, wooden carriages, and the arrows actually hit those wooden things instead of him. And the third reason, which is pretty interesting, is he is moving in the opposite direction of the arrows. Because in Game of Thrones, we actually had a scene like this, where Rickon Stark was running to Jon Snow and Ramsay wanted to kill him with an arrow. So Rickon was moving like this and the arrow was coming towards him like this. So he had to zigzag to be able to dodge the arrow. But here, Daemon doesn't need to zigzag because he's already running in the opposite direction of the arrows. He's running in this direction and the arrows are coming from this direction. As I said, it's not easy to do. And the third reason is plot armor. But you can't actually say plot armor because he got hit by 3 arrows. So no plot armor around here. It's not Lord of the Rings or the last season of Game of Thrones. Okay, another important thing is how well done the plan has been designed, because look at this. The crab feeder asks his men to go out and attack him. This is something he never did in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, whenever they attacked him, he went back to the cave and he hid there. What's different this time? This time, Damon is alone on his own. So he actually could go back into the cave and tell his men to go back into the cave, and he could survive this. But just because Damon was alone, no dragon in the sky, no army behind his back, it's a very good target. So he's just sending his men one by one to go and kill him. And at the same time, he's also looking at the sky to see if there is any dragon coming or not, which is a very small detail. Man, so well done. And another very important detail in the scene is Craxus never shows up. That's right. Craxus is Damon's dragon. And whenever Damon's in danger, Craxus has to show up. So even Damon gets 3 arrows into his body, but Craxus never shows up. You know why? Because if he shows up, the whole plan is going to be ruined. If he shows up, the crab feeder is going to go back to the cave, his men are going to go back to the cave, and nothing's going to happen. So they had a very good idea for this, that Craxus doesn't have to show up, and it has to be Damon on his own, because Craxus is red. So if he fly in the blue sky, he's gonna be spotted. Instead, they're gonna use another dragon named Sea Smoke. Let me search that. Yes, they use another dragon named Sea Smoke. And the reason they use him is because he has the color of the smoke. So he can hide in the sky between the clouds and no one can spot him until he attacks, and it's too late. And Laenor Velaryon is actually riding that dragon. Another important thing I missed to tell you is Craxus can't attack them when he doesn't have a rider. That's right. Damon has to be on Craxus so he can guide the dragon where to attack and where to burn. Dragons can do that on their own, and we saw that in Game of Thrones, but it's kind of like Tesla autopilot mode. I mean, you can't set it up, but you can't, do it without a driver. Oh my god. Okay, so you can't be down there, not on the dragon, and expect the dragon to do something you want it to do. Just because Damon is in the open field and Craxus doesn't have a rider, he can't attack it. Maybe that's another reason Craxus doesn't show up. And last but not least is how badass Damon goes inside the cave and comes back with only half of Crabfeeder's body. I mean, man, I really wish that I could see a fight between them. But just because Crabfeeder was messing around with Damon in the last 3 years, I think no fight happened between them. So Damon went inside and swung his sword only once and cut the Crabfeeder into half and came back with half of his body. And another small detail in this episode is Damon gets Crabfeeder's hand and takes him out of the cave. And as we know, Crabfeeder has grayscale, which is a sickness that if you touch someone who has this sickness, you also will get infected. I don't know how Damon did that. I don't know if he was wearing any gloves. I don't think he was wearing any gloves because we didn't see any gloves. But maybe when the Crabfeeder is dead, the grayscale is not going to be spread anymore. I don't know about it. Maybe I have to go and read about it. But the scene was so badass. Although we didn't see any battle between Damon and the Crabfeeder, but seeing him going inside the cave and coming out with only half of the Crabfeeder's body is almost so badass that we accept it and we say it's okay if we didn't see any fight between them. And when you compare the ending scene of the episode with the beginning scene of the episode, you say, okay, the purpose has been achieved now. We started from one point and now we are in another point and we achieved something we wanted. It's not like Lord of the Rings, because in Lord of the Rings, I think the entire episode 2 was in vain. Wait a second. Was it episode 2 or 3? There was an elf who was captured by orcs, and at the beginning of the episode, he was a slave to them. The entire episode got passed. He lost all his friends, and at the end of the episode, he was still slave to them. So the entire episode was in vain. You could delete the entire section, and there would be no effect to the story. I don't know why they did that, but here in House of the Dragon, man, everything happens for a reason. All the scenes has a meaning to them, and some of them has very deep meanings to them. Like the one I mentioned, the foreshadowing of King Robert's death, which we saw in this episode. And man, as I said, it's an 8.5 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10. I saw so many pleasing moments in this episode, so many action, and if that's what this show is gonna deliver to us, I'm down for it, man. Show me more. I want to see more of you. I mean, that's what I'm here for. Okay, I almost told you all the things I wanted to tell about this episode. There's nothing more. If you think I missed something, you can just mention it in the comments for me and other people to know it. And thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and see you in the next video.